What if I told you that everything you knew about Christmas and Christianity was a lie? What if I told you that what you have grown up in church hearing, or maybe you've listened to TV and you've heard someone preaching on television before, and what if I told you what they're telling you is not what truly Christmas is about and what Christianity is about? You see, we have this idea that Jesus is something equivalent to Santa Claus. Now, kids, I know you are super excited about Santa Claus tonight, right? I mean, he's coming, right? I mean, it's pretty awesome, right? You're going to wake up tomorrow morning, and he's going to be stuff, but he's going to bring you stuff, and it's going to be in your stocking, it's going to be under the tree, and it's going to be fabulous. But what if we didn't look as Jesus as another version of Santa Claus? See, we live in a society where we talk about Christianity and we look at it and we see it as something that is what we can get out of it. We're in trouble, when we are hurting, when we need help, what do? We cry out to God. But then that time passes and it dissipates and goes away. You know, many of you have heard the Christmas story over and over and over again. And it's the same story every year, and it's a wonderful and amazing story. It's a fabulous story. It's really one of the greatest stories ever told. And it's something fabulous, it's something amazing to think about how Jesus came into this world, God himself, who was separated by sin from his creation and was forced to leave because of what we had done. Because what Adam and Eve had done was forced to remove himself from creation. But instead of just giving up and starting over, he said, I love you too much. I love my creation too much. So I'm going to do something that is incredible. I'm going to do something that is out of the ordinary. I'm going to do something that makes absolutely no sense. It will defy all the laws that I've put into place as far as nature goes. And Mary, never been married or with a man, somehow becomes pregnant. Because God himself found a way to interject himself into the course of our human history. What an amazing gift that is, that he found a way to interject himself into our world, to interject himself into our society. He grew up like any other kid did. He scraped his knee. He got sick. He felt all the feelings of sadness. It's very interesting as we listen to the Christmas story. We hear a lot about Joseph, his earthly father. But when Jesus starts his ministry, we never hear about Joseph again. I'm willing to bet that he knew tragedy of losing a lost one. He knew the experiences that we have as humans, understanding death and the pain that comes with that. He understood everything that we have gone through. The feelings that you have felt, he felt. And when he interjected himself into this world, he came about and he began to preach and began to teach and began teaching a message that was completely foreign. You know, it's really interesting as you watch Jesus and as you read about him through Scripture, what you'll see is that he's a pretty popular guy. He's a real popular guy. He's able to do things that no one else could do, right? And so what he does is people need to be healed. No doctor can fix that. There's a story, you can see it in the Gospel of Mark, where there's this man named Jairus. His daughter is desperately sick, and he is crying out. And he realizes that Jesus is in town and there is hope because his daughter is about to die. And so he goes and he finds him and he says, Jesus, you just come to my house. And in the midst of walking to this man's house, another woman who's been sick, who's been alienated by society because of her disease, who's looked down upon as unclean, believes if she could just reach out and grab the hem of his garment, of Jesus' garment, that she would be healed. And she is. She's healed. And then, only to find out that Jairus' daughter, through this whole thing, ends up dying. And then Jesus goes and he brings her back to life. People knew and understood what Jesus could do. And how often do we approach Jesus in that way? As someone or something that could do something for us. But he is so much bigger than that. See, if you read Scripture, you'll come across some interesting passages that don't sound very Christian. You may even be shocked that Jesus even said them. One of them we're going to look at tonight very briefly. It comes from Matthew chapter 10, verse 34. We think about Christmas time. We think about the joy and the love and the peace that Jesus is supposed to bring. Listen to what Jesus says about him entering the world. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but to bring a sword. Wait a second, that doesn't sound like the message I hear at Christmas. That doesn't sound like the Jesus I know. These are Jesus' words right here. Verse 35. I have come to set man against his father, and daughter against her mother, and daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a person's own enemy will be those in his own household. Whoever loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever loves his son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. We get this idea of what Christianity is supposed to be. But oftentimes what happens is we make it to be something that is not what Jesus intended it to be. These people, this crowd that Jesus is talking to, his disciples, they're all following him because they're expecting him to become a revolutionary. They're expecting him to overthrow the Roman government and restore Israel to where it was when David was king in the Old Testament. And Jesus' response to him is, no, I haven't come to bring peace in the way you think I'm going to bring it. I haven't come for any of this. Instead, I have come to pit family members against each other, friends, loved ones. A sword is an interesting thing. A sword is something that divides. Its purpose is to cut. Its purpose is to maim. Its purpose is to separate something in two. Jesus came not for us to be wealthy, not for us to have all the creature comforts of this world. It's not for us to have good jobs and have that car that we want. It's not for us to come to church on Christmas Eve and just enjoy some Christmas songs and enjoy this time that we have together and then go off and open presents. It is so much more than that. Because American Express can do all the things I just said. Except when the bill comes. But Jesus can do something that no person can do. What Jesus does is he came for one reason and one reason alone, and that was to save you. He came to save you. And he came to save you from sin. The things that we're not proud of. The things that we kind of try to hide. The things that we kind of, we don't want our wife or our loved ones to see, our friends to know about. You know, it's kind of like that closet that everybody has or that drawer that everybody has in their house, and you know what I'm talking about, right? All that stuff that you really don't want anybody to see, so you just kind of shove it in there and close it and then hope no one opens it. I won't tell you where that is in my house, I promise. And no peeking, right? But here's the thing. We all have that place where we hide those things, that place that we don't want to know. And here's the thing. God knows every single one of those things. God sees those, he knows those, he understands all these things, and what he wants is nothing more is to unburden yourselves. But that unburdening comes with a cost. That unburdening comes with what Jesus says here, that whoever does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Are you worthy of Jesus Christ? We think of crosses, and what do we think of? We think of the decorations. We live in Texas, right? I mean, most of you all probably have cross walls in your houses, right? Many of you wear crosses as jewelry. We decorate them. You saw one earlier back here. It'd be really strange if Jesus came nowadays. Because the symbol of him being killed by the government would be what? An electric chair? A syringe? That'd be really strange, right? Like people walking around with jewelry of little syringes and electric chairs around their necks. But that's what the cross is. It's an instrument of torture. It's an instrument of death. It is an instrument in which Jesus picked so that he could take your place and take on all those things that you have in that closet or in that drawer so that you would not be penalized for it. Are you worthy of following him? Are you worthy to take up his cross and follow him? We think about Christmas and we think about Jesus, and we think of this sweet little baby. We think of Mary, we think of mangers, we think of hay, we think of the donkey in the background doing what donkeys do, I don't know. But that's what we think of at Christmas time. And we lose sight of what the gospel truly means, is that Jesus has come to separate you from your sin, to forgive you, and take on that punishment. Someone has to pay. Someone has to pay. When that American Express card bill comes and you're very sad, someone's got to pay it. Our sin works in the same way, except Jesus is willing to take that bill and I'll pay it for you, so you don't have to feel the effects of this. That is the beauty of Christmas. That is the beauty of what it means for Jesus to interject himself into this world. We're about to observe what's called the Lord's Supper. This is a special time in the life of our church. You see, the Lord's Supper is oftentimes thought of with Easter, Passover services and everything. In our church, we celebrate it on Christmas Eve as well. And the reason why we do that is simple, is because without Christmas Eve, without Christmas, there is no Easter. If we are to be sanctified by Jesus' death, there needs to be a birth. Whoever finds his life in Jesus Christ will be called to lose it. Following Jesus is a costly, costly measure. But let me tell you, it's worth it. Let me tell you from firsthand experience that giving your life, as you saw these boys who gave their lives to Christ, and then they stood before you and said that there is no way that I can continue living how I'm living. I want to live my life to follow Jesus. I want to live my life. I want to take up my cross and follow him. I want to lose my life for his sake. I want to lose my life for Jesus so that I can find my life in him. That is the message of Christmas.